This lesson is for section 4.1. Today we're going to be plotting points in the coordinate plane. So we're going to start by labeling our coordinate plane and making sure that we have all of the right vocabulary when describing this coordinate plane here. So here I've got a 10 by 10 coordinate plane. It could be bigger or smaller, but this is a pretty standard size. We've got two axes, the x and the y axis, and the x-axis is the one that goes across like this, so I'm going to label that the x-axis. Off to the side right here, so that's the x-axis. And the y-axis is the one that is vertical, it goes up and down. And I used to have a teacher that would say y to the sky, because the y kind of, actually, let me draw it a little bit better. So for the y-axis, see how it goes up and down, the y? That's how I used to remember that the y-axis is the one that went up and down. So the x and y axis break up our coordinate plane into 4 different quadrants. And the quadrants are labeled like this. This one here is quadrant 1. And a lot of times we use Roman numerals to represent the quadrants. If you want to use Roman numerals, you can. You can also use numbers. That's fine. So that's Roman numeral 2 for quadrant 2. Down here in the bottom, that's quadrant 3. And then finally we have quadrant 4 here. I used to have a hard time remembering the order of the quadrants. And then somebody showed me this trick, which I think is kind of cool. If you just draw a C, that tells you the order that the quadrants go in. So off to the side here, let's just write it in the top corner of our notes. We can draw this C here to represent the quadrants. So that's quadrant 1, then quadrant 2, quadrant 3, quadrant 4. So it goes in order when you draw a C of all the quadrants. So one of the uses of the coordinate plane is to be able to give a visual representation of an equation so that we can see kind of what that shape of the equation looks like. So what we're going to be doing this chapter is graphing linear equations. Those form lines. But we have to start with the very basics first. We have to make sure that we can plot points, and they're also called ordered pairs. Okay, so another word that I'm going to use often is called an ordered pair. It's the same thing as a point. And the reason why they're called ordered pairs, they definitely go in order, x first, then y. That first point, the x-coordinate, that tells you where to move left or right along the x-axis. And then the second number, the y-coordinate, that tells you how to move up or down along the y-axis. So we're going to start with labeling a very special point called the origin. So the origin has the coordinates 0, 0. Whoops. So the x value is 0 and the y value is 0, which means we're right here, right at the center of all 4 quadrants, right at the intersection of the x and y axis. This is 0, 0, or the origin. Okay, up next, we're going to label each of the quadrants with the appropriate signs. So all of the points that fall within quadrant 1 here, they're always going to have positive x values and positive y values. As you can see, if you're going to move along the x-axis, all these numbers are positive, and if you move up, all these numbers are also positive. That's how you would land inside quadrant 1. If you're in quadrant 2, now all of a sudden your x values, since you're going to the left of that origin, now your x values are negative, your y values are positive still. Okay, so we have negative x values and y values that are positive. When you're in quadrant 3, you're going to go left, which means your x values are negative, and you're going down, which means your y values are also negative. So our signs here in the third quadrant are negative, negative. And then finally in the fourth quadrant, your x values here, since we're moving to the right, they're positive, but your y values, since you're moving down, these are negative. So our coordinates all have the positive x value and a negative y value. We're about ready to plot some points, and whenever we plot points, we always want to make sure that we go in the exact same order. We always do the x value first, and then we do the y value. So when we do the x value, we always move left or right first. We start at the origin, we either move left or right, and then we do the y value, and then we go up or down based on what the number is. So for this first example here, 2, 3, the x value is 2, so I start at the origin, and I'm going to move to the right 2 because these are positive x values. So I move along the x-axis first, so I'd be hovering right above here for right now, and then because of a positive 3, that means I move up 3 units. So I'm right here. Now, whenever we plot points, we always want to make sure that we label them, and we always use capital letters to label points. So there's point A. All right, let's switch up colors here for a second. Now let's try B. So B says the point is 3, -1. So again, it's a positive 3. So I'm going to start at the origin and I'm going to move to the right 3 units because this is the positive direction. Then I'm going to go down 1 unit because it's negative. So here's my point, B. And it's really easy sometimes to get students confused with this. They move the wrong direction. Sometimes they move left or right, or I'm sorry, up or down first before moving left or right. And I like to use the analogy of an elevator. When you think about an elevator, this is going to be a terrible drawing of an elevator, but imagine that that's an elevator. When you are standing outside the elevator, you always have to move this direction horizontally, right, to get into the elevator before you can either move up or down. It's the same idea when we plot points. It's just an analogy. You always want to make sure you go left or right, so you have to step into the elevator before you can go up or down vertically. All right, now let's try the point C, -2, 5. So this time the x value is -2, which means I'm moving to the left 2 units from the origin. So I move left 2 horizontally, and then I'm going to go up 5 because it's a positive 5. So if I go up 5 units, I'm right here now. So we're going to label that C. And point D here, 0, -9. Sometimes it's really easy to mess this one up. When it's 0, -9, that means you don't move at all for the x value. So we're going to stay right here at the origin. We do not move left or right. We just stay right here hovering above the origin. And then we're going to go down 9 units. So if we go down 9 units, I'm landing right on the y-axis. Okay, and I'm going to label that point D. So this one ended up right on the y-axis. And we're going to talk about later on, all of the points on the y-axis always have a 0 for the x value. All right, next up is point E, and it says to plot any point in quadrant 2. So this one's just to make sure that we understand where quadrant 2 is. So I just have to make sure I land somewhere inside here. Now I don't want to plot it right here because I'm not really technically on quadrant 2 then. I'm now on the x-axis. I'm in between the second and third quadrant instead of in quadrant 2. So I could plot something like that. That would work. So here's point E. Now the coordinates of point E, the ones that I chose here, would be -7. Okay, so I went left -7, and then up 3, so that's -7, 3. All right, last but not least, we've got point F. So for point F, we're supposed to plot a point that is 7 units to the left of the origin. Okay, so I need to make sure I start at the origin, and then I'm going to move 2 units down after that. So let's try that. So we're at the origin, we're moving 7 units to the left, which means I'm here on the x-axis, right above here. And then I want to move 2 units down, so I end up right here at this point. And the coordinates of point F, those would be -7, -2. All right, that's the end of the lesson, guys. Nice job. Tomorrow we're going to practice some more with plotting points. We're also going to do a battleship game to see how good you are at these coordinate planes. Good job. See you tomorrow.